So as we look to that more sustainable future, a more inclusive future, inclusive of more resorts, but also inclusive of more kinds of travelers, how can destinations around the world make sure that they are continuing to build it back better, getting ready for the people to come? We have a great panel now for you that's going to have a diverse set of voices. And as I introduce them, I'd like them to come up and take their place on the stage. First of all, let me welcome José Carlos Azcárraga, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Grupo Posadas, joined by Aileen Clemente, Chairman and President of Rajah Travel Corporation, also Frank Rainieri, President and Chief Executive Officer of Grupo Puntacana, Flavia Santoro, Chief Executive Officer of Colombia, and Brett Tollman, Chief Executive of the Travel Corporation. And as they take their places on stage, I'm going to ask each of them to, as they introduce their company and what they've been doing over the past year to be ready for the reopening of travel, I'm going to ask each one of them to start by telling us how they've used this year off, so to speak, this time of dormant travel, to actually get ready for travelers, to actually dig in and do more sustainable travel for the future, to be more inclusive of communities, to take advantage of this downtime. And Aileen, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. For the Philippines, what we have done is actually talk about sustainability in the sense of having a Philippine tourism human capital development. So we've spent our time doing that because we feel that sustainability is about inculcating in the trifocal education system in the Philippines and not just talk about sustainability. And we also have several success stories already on inclusivity by converting our dynamite fishers before into tour guides and boatmen for whale watching and so on. And also because the Philippines is an avian and marine migratory path, we have converted some of these informal sectors into organized community, and we discussed with them what are the governance benefits of being an organized community.
Great. Frank, let me move to you. Tell me what you've been doing in the Dominican Republic during this year.
Well, to us, inclusion and sustainability is in our DNA. We believe that the business person of the 21st century has to have that very much in its mind. And of course, the pandemic showed why. At this moment, everybody got together. We forgot about if you were a big or small hotel, if you were in the tourist industry and you were the manager or just the employee. The whole community got together to work to enforce all the protocol that allow us to improve the situation that we were facing. And of course, now we realize that many of the things that were accepted by part of the society, when we talk about sustainability, that are becoming the most practical part. Now we want low density. We want to see a tourism more inclusive in the society, in the community, in the hotels. So there's a big change in the mentality and the approach we have to do if we want to really push ahead the development of the tourist industry.
Flavia, we heard yesterday from your former president about some really innovative ideas of using former guerrillas now as tour guides in the mountains of Colombia. Tell us what you've been doing during this year when tourism has been down and really depressed. How have you been investing in sustainability, inclusion of communities in Colombia?
Thank you, Kathleen. And I would like to start by saying hi to the panelists and to all the people that are here today with us this morning. I would like to start by letting you know what ProColombia is. ProColombia is that entity of the government that is in charge of promoting our country as that leading destination for investors, for tourism to get into our country, and also for international buyers to acquire our goods and services. So in that sense, just regarding tourism, what we did since the first moment was we started with not an aislamiento in Spanish, getting isolated, but more an alistamiento, getting ready. So we have been getting ready since the first moment of the pandemic. Regarding sustainability, the Colombian government did a very good job renewing the tourism law. So now it's a tourism sustainable law that it's promoting that all the communities we can have included in our tourism law, but also a politics of sustainable growth. So we have been working in a public policy and in law, but also as a promoting agency, what we promote is that communities are part of the circle of doing all this tourism promotion. So we have been promoting that Colombia is a sustainable destiny that helps communities to grow, because that's like the core of doing now tourism. So I will tell you that that's what we have been doing, and we are ready. We have been having a lot of awards that help us acknowledge that Colombia, it's a very welcoming country. We have now a new manifesto país, country manifest, that says that Colombia is the most welcoming place on earth. So I welcome you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett, let me ask you, you said you took advantage of this year of dormant travel to really double down on your sustainability commitment. Tell us some of the things you've been doing.
Thanks, Kathleen. So it's certainly been a busy year for us in those ways, not just sustaining our business. We were going to celebrate 100 years as a family-owned and run business last year, which we've certainly delayed till next year. But we set out measurable sustainability targets. September last year, we set 11 sustainability goals to address the issues of climate, food, diversity, waste, experiences, and wildlife. These goals are anchored to what I'm now going to call President Santos's 17 goals for sustainable development. Understanding he launched them. This Earth Day, we launched our 5-point climate action plan and have committed to setting our carbon reduction goals by the middle of next year when we're fully operating again, and to sourcing 50% of our electricity from renewable sources by 25 across all of our hotels, our ships, our accommodation facilities, over 500 vehicles we have, and the more than 1,500 itineraries that we operate in a typical year. We've also, through our nonprofit Tread Right, invested over $100,000 in 2 nature-based carbon removal solutions called Project Vesta and Green Wave. If you'd like to learn more, you can see that on our treadright.org foundation website or my Instagram. Amazing. One's looking to take the natural process of weathering to permanently store carbon in rock called olivine, and the other, Green Wave, is studying how kelp can be added to soil to increase its carbon storage potential. So as we hear, I mean, there are real innovative ways that we can solve our existential climate crisis. So for us, it's very clear and simple. Set our targets, measure our progress, and be transparent. And then from an inclusivity standpoint, certainly want to give a shout out to Billy Colber, who's hopefully in the audience, and reiterates on this pin I'm wearing that everyone is welcome. We launched or extended our diversity and inclusion initiatives. We now have 145 business resource groups across our organization, promoting everything from addressing the SDGs to promoting women further within our organization. I did text Luis yesterday that over 58% of our executive and mid-management teams are female, and we have ensured that every one of them are compensated the same or better than the men in the organization. Being I know many here believe that the future is female. So very proud of what we're doing around what we call IDA, inclusivity, diversity, equality, but with action.
Great. And at Grupo Posadas, tell us, Jose Carlos, how you've used this year to actually shift perhaps the focus and emphasis of your action plan as Brett described his.
Yeah, definitely it has changed us. I think that we get a second chance to really do things better. I think that when you run into a crisis like the one that we have been in during the last years, you have to learn and to be humble, to be able to learn a lot of the things that are happening. Inside the company, I think that we've always been very inclusive, but things have gone accelerated a lot because of the crisis. Just to give you a few examples, no? I mean, we feel very proud that out of our 185 hotels that we have open, about 2/3 of the general managers have started in entry-level positions. And that's great, not only because they know Posadas, it's because they are Posadas. And at the end of the day, they're sending a message to the rest of the company that that is feasible, that that's something that they should be able to achieve. So also, more than half of the general managers are women. And the great thing about that is that probably each time that we have an annual meeting, we introduce the new GMs, and about 80% of them are being women. And I think that's something that it's really rates. Now, but probably from the outside, what we have learned from this crisis has a lot to do with the impact that tourism has in the local communities. And I think that something that Posadas, as any company, should be doing is, if we're creating a lot of value through tourism, the question here is, how can we transfer that value? How can we balance that value into the local communities? Having luxury resorts with poor local communities, that's something that is not a good formula. That's something that's not going to last in the future. Therefore, what we need to do is really, okay, throughout the government, obviously, but also as for the private sector, to be also very inclusive of helping the local communities to participate in this creation of value and obviously the benefits that it brings.
That's great. I'm going to ask the panel to kind of help me out almost with a verbal word cloud. You know, the word clouds where we throw out an idea, a concept, and I'm going to have you just jump in and help me build that visual word cloud. When we hear sustainability, when we hear diversity, when we hear inclusion, how do you define that? What are the concepts and the words and the commitments that you think of top of mind? Brett, start with you, and I want people just to jump in with the words. Build on this word cloud.
Yield over volume.
Say it again.
Yield over volume.
Yield of volume. Somebody else jump in.
Colombia. That's what it's: sustainability, inclusion, and diversity.
Somebody else jump in.
I would say balance. It's a balance between creating value, creating economic value, taking care of the planet, but also working with local communities. So balancing those three acts.
Somebody else, Aileen, jump in.
Stewardship.
Stewardship.
To us, it's the story of our company, because we've been involved in both from the day one, 52 years ago.
Somebody else jump in. Build this word cloud for me. More ideas.
A clear, transparent action plan like Colombia has.
Clear, transparent action plan.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Inculcation of sustainability. It's not just a short term, but it has to be a long-term goal.
Putting it into the DNA of your company. What
Yes.
else? Build some more words for me.
In inclusion, I would say make it simple and make it flat. I mean, that everyone gets the same opportunities. Women, people of different races, different preferences, different everything, that it's same.
And inclusion. Help me build on the inclusion word cloud. What does that mean? Who does that include?
Community.
Everyone.
Community. I will say that it includes community. And for example, we had through the awards last year, we have the LGBT awards. And for example, ProColombia is an entity where 60% are women. And we have been chosen through Great Place to Work to be the second place. That's inclusion. So I think that's also including all the community.
Go ahead, Frank.
We believe that inclusion means sharing the good things and also being together in the bad times. And it means, for example, in the pandemic, when it began, we decided to provide not only a salary, but we went to the community and shared 45,000 cases of food, with enough food for a family of 5 for a week. And we did it with our personnel, taking it to the homes of the most needed. Integration is an important part of when we talk about inclusivity.
Brett, other ways that inclusiveness comes to life.
It's just doing the right thing and embracing that we live in an incredibly diverse world. And from a customer standpoint, from a team player standpoint, if you're not being inclusive, then you're really challenging and limiting the opportunities for your business on recruitment, retention, and appealing to many customers. So it's inclusive of everything, and obviously being transparent and sincere about it.
Aileen, I think you want to build on that.
Well, for me, dynamism, upskilling, and reskilling are part of being inclusive. So.
Jose.
Inclusiveness, I would say that to be able to provide it to the market, you have to start with your team. To have a diverse team that can become a competitive advantage, especially on product design and experience design.
And how about accessibility of your country, your results? What does accessibility mean to you?
We are a country of regions, for example. So we have decided to promote our country through these huge macro regions. So, for example, we have to have accessibility to these regions. We have, like, for example, the Caribbean. It's like where I am from. But we have there like a big jewel that is Cartagena. But then through accessibility, you can get to Santa Marta, where we are inviting Frank soon to be there with us. So you have to be accessible not only through infrastructure, but also through culture, through including communities. So I will say that.
Anybody else want to build on accessibility? What about accessibility for the traveler?
So as WTTC always espouses, it is about infrastructure, as President Santos was saying yesterday with how many airports he built, to what President Biden's talking about in the US with his new infrastructure plan, rebuilding our roads, building new airports. It is about what John in the room here from Accessible Travel is about, that everyone, whatever your disability is welcome and has the ability to move around your country in an accessible way.
And making a lasting difference, which is what we're talking about here. How about for women? Because we're going to be building on that theme of an industry that disproportionately employs women, but also disproportionately employs women at the bottom of the pyramid. Jose Carlos, you talked a little bit about that with your employees.
Yeah, I think that is changing, and I think that's great news, honestly. I think that in my experience, women are doing things much better than what we can do as men. I think that women are really growing on, I mean, I love to say that it's kind of a mixing words, that what I've done for women in our company has been nothing, and nothing means not helping you, but not hurting you, just allowing you to become what you can do. And there's a huge amount of examples of people, of women that have been able to succeed because they're just better. I mean, we have one as the president of the WTTC right now, which Gloria, clearly nobody gave her nothing for free. She earned it. And I think that that's something that you should be able to provide, the possibility of them to earning it and to being proud about it.
Frank, with women, tell me what you're doing.
In Grupo Punta Cana, 5 of the 8 senior vice presidents are women. And through my 52 years in Punta Cana, I think that sixth sense that women have, that women don't have, are basic, because we're dealing with people in our industry, not with furniture, not with any type of material. We are not an industry of the typical type. So we're dealing with people, and a woman has a sense that's much important than ours when we're dealing with other people. So to us, women has been an integrated part of Punta Cana.
Brett, you notice I'm asking the men first. Brett, around women, what are you doing?
It's what we haven't been doing for so long. Our hotel company's been led for over 30 years by my mother. So we've never had an issue or thought about, how to promote women. It's just come naturally. And as a result, we are where we are. But I do appreciate we in the industry have an example to set within our companies and outside. So any way we can share and message what we're doing. In our Tread Right Foundation, all of our ambassadors and storytellers are women. Serene Fox, this amazing indigenous activist from Canada. Celine Cousteau, granddaughter of Jacques Cousteau. And Amy Vitale, who's a National Geographic photographer. So it's having the opportunity to provide opportunities for people, whether they're men or women, while appreciating that women always need a leg up based on some of the historical inappropriate behavior of some people in the past.
Flavia, I'm going to move to the women now.
Yes, I will tell you that I think that In tourism, there's like three main actors: the government, the local and the national government, of course, the private sector, and of course, the visitors. So I will say, for example, in Colombia, in the government, we have a vice president that is woman. We have the chief of staff of President Duque, she's woman. We have 5 of our ministries led by women. But as I was telling you, ProColombia, it's 60% women. We have been chosen second place to work, from Great Place to Work. But in the private sector, we have a lot of women that are leading and that are working in the tourism sector. And visitors, I would like to check how much of our visitors are, which percentage are women, but I will tell you that it's a big percentage, and we have like experiences very special for women, but also for men, because I think everything is better when we have that good mix of women and men in experience in tourism.
And Aileen, how about at Rajah Corporation?
Well, we don't have a problem even in the entire Philippines because it's a very matriarchal society, actually. So there are more women in the industry, about 80% are women. So there's not really an issue, but just to mention the fact that empowerment, not just women empowerment, is about providing the right opportunities for one to optimize what they are capable of doing. So whether they are male, female, or whatever gender they want to express or espouse, they should be allowed to be able to do what they can with their potentials.
So I'm going to shift now to a concept that we're hearing more and more about as people have started to travel, visiting their national parks, doing driving trips to destinations that would normally not be on their radar, or to even participate in travel digitally, virtually. The concept of slow travel. We've all slowed down our lives. We've been working from home largely. We've been surrounded by our families bit by bit as people of different generations could actually welcome in their children or their grandchildren safely to be with them. And this idea of slowing down our lives and holding on post-pandemic to some of the benefits of slow living, slow cooking, slow travel. Slow travel is about, I think, savoring the experience. It's about looking at travel somewhat differently. How have all of you thought about the way people want to travel post-pandemic and how that might be a more inclusive, more sustainable experience for our industry to embrace? Jose Carlos.
I think there are 2 major things affecting that. One of them is the pandemic, as you said, and I totally agree. We have learned to live our lives slowly, in a different way, let's say in the previous months. And I also think that that's also a thing that has been changing during generations. If you, the millennials, the Zs, they are looking more for experiences. And it's not only that, Cancun, you have the sun, you have the beach, and it's a great experience, and I'm sure that it's going to be a huge amount, but they're looking for also something different. In our experience in the hotel business, we're seeing places such as San Miguel de Allende, we're talking about Oaxaca, and some other places that leave some cultural experience, more than just relaxing, let me put it that way, of getting to know the local communities, how they live, how they work, how they perceive art. Those type of things, and definitely that's going to be a shift, especially in Mexico, I see, but in many other countries, where they're going to start traveling because of different reasons. Now, a huge question mark is how can we make that sustainable? Because obviously we have to learn that when that happens, then again, you have to invest in infrastructure and in the local communities. I don't think that we have the answer yet, but at least we know the problem.
Aileen, tell us how you think about that change in the traveler's mindset.
Well, one thing I learned from Brett, because we have been partners for quite some time, we're the representative in the Philippines, is that different brands cater to different types of travelers. So you have to just keep on expanding what you can offer and just make sure that you have a different brand for the different types of travelers. Basically, that's it.
And Frank, how about you? How are you thinking that the traveler might be looking for something slightly different than what you had in 2019, which was such a successful year?
People have there has been a lot of changes in the mentality of the people from before the pandemic and now. What we have found out in Punta Cana is people, first of all, they want to be in low density areas. They want to incorporate themselves to the local ambiance. They want to be more with nature than to the disco. They want to do more paddling and kayaking than go in a catamaran with 50 people. There has been a movement toward the low density and more inclusive with the local society. So we have, small or big, doesn't matter. We have to understand this change in the mentality. We also have found out a lot of people are moving out of their home, big cities, and spend more time buying homes in resort areas where they have the infrastructure necessary, and from there they can work for a long period of time. In Punta Cana Resort, we have hundreds of people from all over the world, Luxembourg, Spain, France, United States, living there permanently, practically, in homes that they have just bought or that they had before and they used for a vacation. The vacation time has changed. Now it's not 15 days or 30 days a month. Now people want to live, but being able also, as part of their daily life, have been on an ambiance of a vacation.
Flavia.
Yes, I will like to show you this guide that it's like a manual it was designed for tourism guides in Colombia, but it has been so well received that now we think it's a great tool for any visitor to come into Colombia. Actually, our Vice Minister, Julian Guerrero, is here. He designed it with our team in ProColombia. And I think that these kind of tools that also help you understand sustainability, but also we, for example, designed very early a check-in certification that it's with the blessing of the WTTC, that it's called Certificado Bioseguro, and we have more than 500 companies. So to conclude, it's to make the tourism feel that sustainability, that they're going to have an experience that has a lot of different things like nature, but also to feel that they have confidence that this is a safe place to come. I will say that.
Right. When you wrestle with this idea of slow traveler, the travel, and how the traveler might be evolving, what are you thinking about, and what are the things that your communities need to be doing to actually adapt to this? Is it all positive, or is there a downside to this trend?
I think it's all positive. We've been actually doing it for many years, from agritourism to people wanting to go off the beaten path that Brian Chesky was talking about yesterday. We've been doing that for quite a while with our youth brand, Kentucky. A couple of years ago, we launched new trips where 10 years ago you used to start in Amsterdam and go to a strip club. We now take our travelers to a prostitute restitution event where you can meet some of these people that used to be in the sex trade, how they're recovering their lives. We go to Berlin and you get a local guide from a Syrian refugee who tells his story of how he landed in Lesbos and got to Berlin. Or you can go to London and have a tour with someone who used to be homeless and they take you through what it's like. So for some time, people have been wanting to do that. But unfortunately, I think we as an industry need to recognize we're kind of talking to ourselves about this, because whether you look at last summer or you sit in the bar last night, you see the majority of humanity doesn't want to change. And I think we need to be very careful on that, because we as an industry certainly need to be more sustainable. We need to support more destinations. But for some time, the French or anyone else who has had too much tourism have wanted you to take people out of Paris to the suburbs. So, I think it's something that has been around for some time, and we all will do more of it. But we also need to recognize that the majority of humanity isn't interested in sustainability or anything else. They want to get the most out of their money. And if they're going to Europe, for example, they want to do as much as they can, whether it's one destination or many. We've seen so much of our business for the second half of this year, next year, being multi-country trips, where everything you've read is people want to go to one destination and really immerse themselves there and not be concerned about cross borders and so forth. So it's all very interesting.
Of so many of the places that you bring travelers, there probably was nothing happening in these communities, Brett. Sort of, how did you help these communities survive this period? And what is our obligation as an industry to help those communities that survive entirely on tourist visitors and their dollars or other currency?
I mean, honestly, none of us did enough, obviously, but we were very proud to fund all of our charitable commitments and projects last year and this year. Obviously, the charitable world has been devastated with none of us being able to typically fund these projects. But, you know, we know how these destinations that have been decimated from Egypt to Colombia, how important it is. The only way we can support them is getting travelers back, and that's why these past 2 days, listening to Harry from Greece talking about the dependence of us on the governments to move faster is so imperative.
How about your communities, Flavia? I mean, communities that probably saw nobody coming in there, none of that revenue.
Yes, as I was telling you at the beginning, we took it very seriously, not to be isolated, but to be ready. And I think that with communities, what we have been doing is like to show all the benefits that they can have through responsible tourism, one, but also through business, through the private sector in tourism. What we did is that we did all the training virtually for them to get ready for what is this new reality. I think also innovation, it's a very helpful thing to make communities to get over this situation. But I think that also through the government policies that I was mentioning, through the law that established that they will be benefits for them to see all this community to be sustainable in tourism.
Aileen, what was the biggest pivot that you've made in the past year for your business?
For our business, we actually moved to a lot of instruction or education. We haven't been selling a lot of the tours, but we have been educating people. So as I said, inculcating is very important. So we've included a lot of the sustainable development goals in not just for our company, but also in how we reach other universities and so on, so that it's all there. The sustainability concept is there even as they graduate.
Jose Carlos, what was the biggest pivot you made this year?
I think that the typical answer that you would get is, oh, we're providing jobs, opportunities to the local communities. But I think that that answer is not enough. I think that we should also be concerned about, I mean, the way that I see it from a hotel standpoint, you know the client, you have the traffic, you have the facilities, and they have products. They have things that they can share. So being creative, and for example, let me give you a quick one. In Oaxaca, I mean, when I went and visited how they made different artistic parts, I told them, you know what, why don't you go to the hotel and give let's say a class to my guests of how you work and how you're doing things. And then obviously you can sell to them. It's a great benefit for our customers, a great benefit for the hotel, and a great benefit for the communities. So I mean, it's a matter of being creative and understanding that there's a huge change that we can do.
Just a final question for our panelists. I want them each to imagine it's 2030 and the decade that began with the pandemic is behind them. Frank, what is it that you want to look back at 10 years from now and say, since the pandemic, at my resorts, I was able to do, and in my business, I was able to do the following? What is it that you would like to accomplish that really makes a lasting difference?
I think the pandemic redid all our thinking. I think we have to start from scratch. It's like what happened when 9/11, that there was a change of mentality, a change of protocol in our life. So I think now we got to look at the new tourist industry much more integrated with the society, with the community. We have to take the leadership. We have to work more with alliances between the public and the private sector so we can improve our communities and let our visitors share and participate with the communities. We cannot keep our hotels or our areas separated from the communities. So people will be looking more for that. They have changed their mentality. They're not only thinking about how much you make, but how much you participate. And I think that will be the big change of the post-pandemic. And that's where we in the tourism industry have to work hard, integrate and participate with the community.
Flavia, what would you like to look back at 10 years from now and say, since the pandemic, this is how I made a difference?
Two things, I will say. The first one, it's the tourism is the new petroleum of Colombia. I will say that we have achieved that goal, that it's a goal that we have from President Duque. And the second thing that I will say, we are completely recognized through actions, through sustainability, but through different actions as the most welcoming place on earth.
How about you, Aileen?
Well, as I mentioned, we assisted in creating the Philippine Tourism Human Capital Development. So that is a seed that we planted now. So in 10 years, we hope to see the difference.
Juan Carlos.
I would.
Jose Carlos.
Don't worry. I would definitely second the thing about making Mexico understand that tourism is our calling, that's something that the country has to do. That's the first one, the first thing that I would like to achieve. And the second one, which probably is more philosophical, is that I would make a better world by showing people that differences are good, that you're able, by knowing other places, to really start interacting better as a country, as a world.
And how about you? I'll give you the last word, Brett.
Thanks, Kathleen. So I'll move that to 2025, and hopefully by then our business is fully recovered and all of our companies are carbon neutral. We announced on Earth Day our first company, Kentucky, which serves the youth travel market, will be carbon neutral next year. And I certainly hope by 25 we've achieved all of our D&I objectives as well. But if I may, I think more importantly, if I could ask everyone to stand up and please recognize and thank everyone from WTTC, all these incredible young people who've done such a job with Gloria to bring us here.